The underground parking garage smelled like gasoline and fear. Kiera Thompson's hands trembled as she pressed herself against the cold concrete pillar, her racing heart the only sound she could focus on. She'd only come down here to grab her forgotten laptop from her car. A simple 30-second errand after staying late to finish progress reports at San Francisco Academy for the Deaf. Now she was frozen, watching a scene that her rational mind insisted she should run from. 20 feet away, a man stood in the center of the dimly lit garage, his back ramrod straight despite the 6 armed men forming a semicircle around him. Everything about him screamed money and power. The perfectly tailored black suit that probably cost more than Kiera's monthly rent. The way he held himself with absolute authority even surrounded by enemies. The cold calculation in his dark eyes as he assessed his situation. But it wasn't the man who made Kiera's breath catch in her throat. It was the little girl clinging to his leg. She couldn't have been more than 5 or 6 years old, wearing a pink dress with white flowers, her dark hair pulled into 2 neat pigtails tied with ribbons that matched her dress. Her small hands gripped her father's expensive suit pants with the desperate strength of a child who understood, on some instinctive level, that something very bad was about to happen. The man's hand dropped to stroke his daughter's hair with infinite gentleness, a jarring contrast to the gun he held in his other hand, aimed at the leader of the group advancing on them. Kiera should have run. Every survival instinct she possessed screamed at her to slip away while everyone's attention was focused on the standoff, to get to her car and drive far away from whatever violence was about to erupt in this underground tomb. But she couldn't look away from the little girl. Couldn't stop watching her mouth move, forming words that Kiera, who'd spent 12 years learning to read lips in every lighting condition, every angle, every emotional state, understood with perfect, terrible clarity. Appa, I'm scared. I'm so scared. The man responded in Korean, his voice low and dangerous, meant to intimidate the men circling them. But his hand continued to stroke his daughter's hair with a tenderness that made Kiera's chest ache. This was a father who loved his child desperately, even in the middle of what looked like an execution. The leader of the attacking group, a man in his 50s with cruel eyes and a smile that made Kiera's skin crawl, said something in Korean. His tone was mocking, triumphant. The suited man's response was ice cold, his weapon never wavering. But then the little girl's face tilted upward, looking at her father with those impossibly trusting eyes. Her lips moved again, forming words that only Kiera from her hidden vantage point could possibly read. Appa, something's wrong. Your gun feels different. It feels empty. The child couldn't have understood what she was saying. Couldn't have grasped the significance of the weight difference she'd somehow sensed through her father's grip, through some intuition that defied explanation. But Kiera saw the man's almost imperceptible pause. Saw the way his jaw tightened fractionally. Saw the microscopic shift in his stance that confirmed what his daughter had somehow known. He was out of bullets. The 6 men surrounding him didn't know it yet. But in seconds they would. And when they did, both the man and his daughter would die. Kiera had 2 choices. Slip away into the darkness and pretend she'd never witnessed this nightmare, or step forward and do something monumentally stupid. She thought of her students at the deaf school. Thought of 7-year-old Marcus who'd confided last week that he felt invisible in a world that didn't understand his language. Thought of how she'd promised him that someone would always see him, always understand. This little girl was speaking a language her father didn't understand. And in seconds that communication gap would cost them both their lives. Kiera Thompson took a deep breath, stepped out from behind the pillar and changed her life forever. "Excuse me," she called out, her voice shaking but clear in the cavernous space. "Is anyone here having car trouble? I'm a mechanic and I heard." 6 guns swiveled toward her in perfect unison. The suited man's eyes widened with something that looked like disbelief and fury combined. "Get out of here," he barked in English, his accent slight but noticeable. "Now." But Kiera had already committed to her insane course of action. She kept walking forward, hands raised, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might burst through her ribs. "I'm so sorry," she said, still moving toward them with deliberate slowness. "I didn't mean to interrupt anything. I just thought I heard someone having engine problems and—" The cruel-eyed leader laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Wrong place, wrong time, lady. But since you're already here, you might as well stay for the show." He said something in Korean to his men and 2 of them moved toward Kiera. That's when the little girl's eyes found hers. And Kiera saw the moment of recognition, the way the child's expression shifted from fear to something else. Hope maybe. Or recognition of a kindred spirit. The girl's small hands moved in hesitant, uncertain gestures that Kiera recognized immediately. Sign language. Basic ASL, the kind taught in elementary programs or picked up from educational TV shows. The signs were imperfect, childish but clear. Help. Please. Help my daddy. Kiera's breath caught. This child had been teaching herself sign language, probably from books or videos, trying to create her own secret language, her own way of being understood. And now she was using it to beg a stranger to save her father's life. Your daughter, Kiera heard herself say, her eyes still locked on the little girl. She's been trying to tell you something important. The suited man's head snapped toward her, confusion and suspicion warring in his expression. What? About the gun, Kiera continued, her mouth dry as sand. She knows it's empty. The words hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. The cruel-eyed leader's expression shifted from amusement to sharp interest. What did you just say? Kiera swallowed hard, suddenly aware that she'd just announced to a room full of killers that the man they were surrounding was defenseless. She'd inserted herself into something catastrophic. And now she had to figure out how to keep them all alive long enough to regret it. The little girl was still signing, her small hands moving frantically. Save Daddy. Please save Daddy. And Kiera, God help her, was going to try. The morning had started the way all of Kiera Thompson's mornings started for the past 3 years. Staring at her reflection in the bathroom mirror of her modest studio apartment in the Sunset District. Giving herself the same pep talk she'd been repeating since her mother died. You're doing good work, she told her reflection, her warm brown skin still showing the exhaustion of another restless night. Her natural curls were pulled back in a practical low bun, and her dark eyes held the kind of quiet determination that had carried her through grief and loss. The kids need you. You're making a difference. At 32, Kiera had built a life that was simple, meaningful, and safe. She taught ASL and supported deaf students at San Francisco Academy for the Deaf, a private school in the Richmond district that served children from kindergarten through 8th grade. It wasn't glamorous and it certainly wasn't lucrative, but it filled the hole her mother's death had left in ways that nothing else could. Her mother, Kiera Thompson, had been a speech therapist who'd spent her career helping children find their voices. When she was diagnosed with ALS at 58, Kiera had watched helplessly as the disease slowly stole her mother's ability to speak, to swallow, to breathe. Those final 18 months had been brutal. Kiera had moved back home, learned to operate feeding tubes and ventilators, became fluent in the particular language of hospice care. And when her mother could no longer speak at all, Kiera had learned ASL so they could still communicate. I'm so proud of you, her mother had signed with trembling hands just weeks before she died. You see people others overlook. Never lose that. Kiera hadn't lost it. If anything, she'd built her entire life around it, dedicating herself to children who navigated a world that often didn't see them, didn't understand them, didn't make space for them. Kiera, you're doing it again, her best friend and colleague Janet Park said as Kiera arrived at school that morning. Janet was waiting by the teacher's lounge with 2 cups of coffee and a knowing expression. That look. The one where you're mentally preparing yourself to save the world one student at a time. Someone has to, Kiera replied, accepting the coffee gratefully. Did you see Marcus's intake evaluation? His previous school had him in a behavioral disorder program because they couldn't communicate with him. He's not behavioral, he's frustrated. And you're going to fix it, Janet said, affection mixing with exasperation. Just like you fix everything. Kiera, when was the last time you did something for yourself? Went on a date. Had fun. I have fun. Grading papers at 11 p.m. on a Friday doesn't count as fun. Kiera started to protest, but Janet held up a hand. I know. You're fine. You're focused on work. You don't need anything else. She paused, her expression softening. But your mom wouldn't want you to use helping others as an excuse to avoid living your own life. The words hit harder than Janet probably intended. Because she was right. Kiera had been hiding. Ever since her mother's death, she'd thrown herself into work, into helping, into being needed, because it was easier than facing the terrifying emptiness of a life lived entirely for herself. I'll think about it, Kiera said, which they both knew meant she wouldn't. The day unfolded in its familiar rhythm. Morning circle with her primary class, where 6-year-old twins Mia and Marcus practiced signing their names. One-on-one sessions with students struggling with literacy. Lunch duty in the cafeteria, where she mediated a signing argument between two fourth graders about whose turn it was to use the basketball. But it was her afternoon session with 7-year-old Marcus Chin that reminded Kiera why she did this work. Marcus had been at the school for 3 weeks, transferred from a public school that had labeled him difficult and uncommunicative. In reality, he was a bright, sensitive kid who'd been born deaf to hearing parents who hadn't learned sign language, leaving him isolated in his own home. "Miss Thompson," he signed as she settled across from him in the small tutoring room. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course, sweetheart. Do you think my parents will ever really understand me?" Kiera's heart clenched. Marcus's parents loved him. That was clear from the intake meetings, from the way they anxiously asked questions about his progress. But they were struggling, overwhelmed by learning a new language while working full-time jobs and raising 2 other children. "I think," Kiera signed carefully, "that sometimes people love us but don't know how to show it in ways we understand. Your parents are trying. They're taking the sign language classes the school offers." "I know," Marcus signed, his small hands moving with the precision of a child wise beyond his years. "But it's lonely. Waiting for them to understand." "I know it is. But you're not alone. I understand you. And there are lots of people here who do too." Marcus nodded, but his eyes held a sadness that no 7-year-old should carry. "Sometimes I think I'm invisible. Like I'm in a room full of people but no one really sees me." Kiera reached across the table and took his hands gently. "I see you, Marcus. I see exactly who you are. And you're not invisible. You're important and valued and loved." She watched his eyes fill with tears, the quiet tears of a child who'd been holding in too much for too long. She pulled him into a hug, feeling his small shoulders shake as he finally let himself cry. This, she thought as she held him. This was why she did this work. Not for the salary or the recognition, but for these moments where a child who felt unseen finally felt understood. After Marcus's session, Kiera threw herself into paperwork. Progress reports that were due by Friday, IEP documentation, parent communication logs. The administrative work was tedious, but it was part of the job. She was so focused that she didn't notice how late it had gotten until the janitor, Mr. Rodriguez, poked his head into her classroom. "Miss Thompson, I'm locking up in 10 minutes. Kiera looked up, startled to see the darkness outside her windows. "It's 8:30 already?" "Time flies when you're changing lives," Mr. Rodriguez said with a kind smile. "But you need to go home. Get some rest." "You're right. I'm sorry, I'll just gather my things." She packed her bag, shut down her computer and headed for the parking lot. It wasn't until she was halfway home that she realized she'd left her personal laptop in her car from that morning. She'd brought it to school intending to upload some educational videos but had forgotten it in her trunk. Normally she would have just retrieved it the next day. But she'd promised Janet she'd send her some resources for a new student, and the files were on that laptop. "It'll take 2 minutes," she muttered to herself, pulling into a strip mall parking lot to turn around. "Just grab it and go home." The school's parking garage was nearly empty when she returned, just a few cars belonging to the night maintenance staff. Kiera pulled into her usual spot on the lower level, killed the engine and popped her trunk. The laptop was right where she'd left it, tucked in a canvas bag behind her emergency kit. She grabbed it, closed the trunk and was heading back to her car when she heard it. Not a sound, she couldn't hear the confrontation happening one level down. But something else. A shift in the air pressure. The sense that something was wrong in a way she couldn't quite articulate. She should have ignored it. Should have gotten in her car and driven home to her safe, quiet apartment. But Kiera had spent 3 years learning to pay attention to the subtle cues others missed. To notice the child sitting alone in the cafeteria. To spot the student whose signing became hesitant when certain topics arose. To see the things that existed in the spaces between words. And right now, every instinct she possessed was screaming that someone needed help. She moved toward the ramp leading to the lower level, her soft-soled shoes silent on the concrete. As she descended, she started to hear it, voices speaking rapid Korean, the sound sharp and angry. Threatening, cruel, triumphant. He should have turned around. Should have called 911 and let the police handle whatever was happening. Instead, she moved closer, staying in the shadows until she could see them. 6 men in dark suits surrounding a 7th man and a little girl. The man being surrounded radiated danger even from a distance. Everything about him, from his perfectly tailored suit to his controlled posture to the cold fury in his eyes, spoke of power and violence held in check. But it was the little girl that made Kiera's breath catch. She was so small, so delicate, clinging to her father's leg with both hands. Her pink dress should have looked cheerful, but instead it was a heartbreaking splash of color in this gray concrete nightmare. Kiera watched the leader of the attacking group say something in Korean, his tone mocking. Watched the suited man's response, deadly calm despite being outnumbered. And then she saw the little girl's face tilt up toward her father, saw her lips move, and read the words that changed everything. "Appa, your gun feels empty." The child couldn't have known what she was saying. Couldn't have understood. But Kiera saw the man's fractional pause, saw the truth in his micro-expression. He was defenseless. And in seconds he would be dead. The little girl would watch her father die. Kiera thought of Marcus signing, "Sometimes I think I'm invisible." Thought of her mother signing, "You see people others overlook." Thought of every promise she'd ever made to be there for children who needed someone to understand them. This little girl was trying to communicate, was using her own secret language to warn her father. And no one understood her. Except Kiera. She took a deep breath, stepped out from the shadows, and did the bravest, stupidest thing she'd ever done. "Excuse me," she called out. "Is anyone here having car trouble?" 6 guns turned toward her. And Kiera's quiet, safe life ended forever. Kong Miho had built his empire on 3 unbreakable principles: absolute loyalty, surgical precision, and the complete protection of his daughter. At 39, he commanded the Korean syndicate in San Francisco with the same ruthless efficiency his father had used to build it, and his grandfather before him. 3 generations of Kong men had held power in this city, each one expanding the organization's reach, each one maintaining the delicate balance between legitimate business and the less legal enterprises that funded it all. But none of that mattered as much as the little girl currently demanding he read her another bedtime story. "Appa, one more," 6-year-old Seo-yeon pleaded, her dark eyes wide and hopeful as she clutched her favorite stuffed rabbit. "Please? Just one more." Miho looked down at his daughter, feeling his carefully constructed armor crack the way it always did around her. She was the only person in the world who could make him feel human, who could transform him from the cold, calculating leader his organization feared into simply a father who would give his child anything she asked for. "You said just one more 3 stories ago, princess," he replied in Korean, his voice gentler than it had been all day. "It's late. You need to sleep. But I'm not tired yet. And you promised when you came back from your trip that we'd have extra story time." She wasn't wrong. He'd been in Los Angeles for 4 days handling a territorial dispute with the Yakuza families, and he'd missed her with an intensity that sometimes frightened him. She was 6 years old. His entire world condensed into 50 pounds of stubborn determination and inherited rebellion. "One more," he conceded, pulling another book from the shelf in her bedroom, a room he'd designed to be a princess's dream, all soft pinks and whites and enough stuffed animals to fill a toy store. "But then you sleep. Deal? Deal." Seo-yeon snuggled deeper into her pillows, clutching her rabbit as Miho settled beside her. He was halfway through a story about a brave princess and a dragon when his phone buzzed. Dong-hyun, his head of security. "Sir, we have a situation. Park Jin-suk is making his move. He's demanding a meeting tonight." Miho's jaw tightened. Park Jin-suk had been a problem for months. A mid-level player trying to muscle in on territory that had belonged to the Kong family for 2 decades. He'd been making aggressive moves, cutting into their operations, turning some of their lower-level associates. Miho had been patient, giving Park opportunities to back down gracefully. But patience apparently was being mistaken for weakness. "When and where?" he asked quietly in Korean, keeping his voice low so Seo-yeon wouldn't sense his tension. "Midnight. The warehouse district near the port. He says if you don't show, he'll consider it an act of war and start targeting our legitimate businesses." Translation: Park was forcing a confrontation. And if Miho didn't respond, he'd look weak to the other families. In their world, weakness was death. "I'll be there. Assemble the usual team." He hung up and found Seo-yeon watching him with those 2 perceptive eyes that reminded him so painfully of her mother. You have to work again? She asked, her lower lip trembling in the way that could bring him to his knees. You just got home, Appa. I know, princess. But it's important. I'll be back before you wake up, I promise. You always say that. Her voice was small, wounded. But sometimes you're not. Sometimes I wake up and you're still gone and Mrs. Han says you're at work and I don't see you all day. The accusation hit harder because it was true. He'd been absent too much lately, distracted by the escalating tensions with Park, by the complex negotiations with the Vietnamese families, by the endless responsibilities of running an organization that employed hundreds of people and generated millions in revenue. He'd been so focused on building an empire to leave to his daughter that he'd been neglecting to actually be present in her life. I'm sorry, he said, pulling her close. You're right. I've been working too much. I miss you, Seo-yeon whispered against his chest. I miss you even when you're here because you're always thinking about work things. I can tell. God, when had his 6-year-old become so insightful? I'll do better, he promised, meaning it. After tonight I'll take a few days off. We'll do whatever you want. Go to the park, visit the aquarium, have ice cream for breakfast. Really? Hope lit up her face. Really? Can we go to the butterfly garden too? The one with all the flowers? Absolutely. Seo-yeon threw her arms around his neck, and Miho held her tight, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo and feeling something in his chest crack open. His wife, Jiwoo, had died bringing Seo-yeon into the world. Complications during delivery that the doctors said could have been prevented if they'd caught them earlier, if they'd acted faster. Miho had built an entire wing of the children's hospital in her memory, had ensured that no other family would lose a mother due to inadequate maternal care. But no amount of money or monuments could bring Jiwoo back. So he'd poured all his love, all his fierce protectiveness, all the tenderness he'd once shared with his wife, into the daughter who had her mother's eyes and her father's stubborn streak. A combination that usually resulted in Miho giving in to whatever she wanted. Appa. Seo-yeon's voice was drowsy now, finally ready for sleep. Do you think Iyama would be proud of me? The question broke his heart in the best way. She would be so proud, princess. You're smart and kind and brave, everything she was. Mrs. Han says I look like her. You do. Especially when you smile. I wish I could remember her better. Sometimes I think I do, but then I'm not sure if it's a real memory or just from pictures. Miho stroked her hair, his throat tight. I'll tell you all about her. Every day if you want. So you'll always know who she was. Okay. Seo-yeon's eyes were closing now. Love you, Appa. Love you too, princess. More than anything in this world. He stayed with her until she fell asleep, watching the rise and fall of her small chest, memorizing the peaceful expression on her face. This right here, was why he did everything he did. Every difficult decision, every calculated risk, every compromise with his conscience. It was all to build a world where Seo-yeon would be safe and protected and able to grow up without fear. Even if that world required him to be someone she might not be proud of when she was old enough to understand. He kissed her forehead and slipped out of her room, his mind already shifting to the meeting ahead. Park Jin-suk was making a power play, and Miho needed to end it decisively. Show strength. Re-establish boundaries. Sir. Dong-hyun was waiting in the hallway, a man in his mid-40s who'd served the Kong family since Miho's father's time. Loyal, competent, and one of the few people Miho trusted completely. The car is ready. I've assembled 6 men for security. Good. What's the intel on Park's position? He'll have at least 10 men with him. He's trying to intimidate you with numbers. Let him try. Miho's voice was cold now, the father disappearing behind the leader. Has there been any movement from the other families? The Vietnamese are watching closely. So are the Russians. They want to see how you handle this challenge. If you show weakness. I won't. They headed toward the private garage beneath Miho's penthouse, a secure space where his vehicles were kept under constant surveillance. His primary car was a customized Mercedes S-Class, armored and equipped with communications technology that kept him connected to his organization at all times. As they rode the elevator down, Miho's mind was already running through scenarios. Park would expect him to arrive with overwhelming force, so instead Miho would bring a small team. Show confidence rather than fear. Make it clear that he didn't need an army to handle an upstart. It was a calculated risk. But Miho had built his reputation on calculated risks. What he didn't calculate was the sound of small footsteps running down the hallway behind them. Appa. Wait. Miho turned to see Seo-yun running toward him in her pajamas, her stuffed rabbit clutched in one hand. Mrs. Han, the elderly nanny who'd helped raise Miho himself, hurried after her. I'm so sorry, Mr. Kong, Mrs. Han said breathlessly. She woke up when she heard you leave. I want to come with you, Seo-yun announced, her chin set in that stubborn way that meant she wouldn't be easily dissuaded. You said you'd do better and now you're leaving again. Princess, I have to work. Then I'll come to work with you. I promise I'll be quiet. I'll sit in the car and do my coloring book. You won't even know I'm there. Please, Appa. Please don't leave me again. Her voice cracked on the last word and Miho saw the tears gathering in her eyes. This was more than just wanting to spend time with him. This was fear. Fear of being left behind. Fear of waking up alone again. The child psychologist he'd been taking her to, discreetly through channels that couldn't be traced back to his organization, had warned him about this. Separation anxiety, rooted in losing her mother before she was old enough to remember her. A fear that everyone she loved would eventually disappear. Seo-yun, where I'm going isn't safe. Sir, Dong-hyun said quietly. Park specifically requested a meeting. No violence, just negotiation. If you bring Miss Seo-yun, stay in the car with her while I handle the actual meeting. Absolutely not. I'm not using my daughter as a prop. Not as a prop. But if she stays in the car, completely secure, and Park sees that you're confident enough to bring your daughter to a business meeting. Dong-hyun trailed off, letting Miho complete the logic. It would send a message. Miho was so unafraid of Park Jin-suk that he didn't even consider him a threat worth protecting his daughter from. It was a power move. A statement. It was also incredibly risky. But looking at Seo-yun's tearful face, Miho found himself wavering. She'd been having nightmares lately, waking up crying and calling for him. The psychologist said she needed reassurance, needed to feel secure in his presence. One supervised meeting. She'd stay in the car. Be completely safe. Okay, he heard himself say and immediately questioned the decision. But you stay in the car with Dong-hyun. You don't leave the vehicle for any reason. Understood. Seo-yun's face lit up like sunshine. I promise. I'll be so good, Appa. The best. Mrs. Han looked concerned but said nothing as Miho gathered his daughter and headed to the garage. Seo-yun chattered happily the entire elevator ride down, excited about this unexpected adventure. What Miho didn't know, what he couldn't have known, was that Park Jin-suk had no intention of negotiating. The meeting was a carefully orchestrated trap. And in less than 2 hours, Miho's daughter would be the only thing standing between him and a bullet. And a stranger in a parking garage would risk everything to save them both. 4-3 suspended heartbeats, nobody moved. Park Jin-suk's cruel eyes locked onto Kiera, his weathered face splitting into a smile that made her stomach turn. Empty? He repeated in English, his accent thick. His gun is empty? This what you say? I didn't, Kiera started, but Miho cut her off with a voice like a blade. She said nothing of value. He's confused. A civilian who wandered into the wrong place. His English was precise, controlled. Let her leave. This has nothing to do with her. But Park was already moving forward, his confidence growing with each step. No. I think she tell truth. I think this why you keep pointing gun but not shooting. You have no bullets, Kong Miho. He said something in rapid Korean to his men, and they began to spread out, flanking positions that would give them clear shots from multiple angles. Miho's weapon remained steady, still aimed at Park's center mass. But Kiera could see the calculation in his eyes. The brutal mathematics of a man with no good options assessing just how bad his situation had become. Last chance, Park said, pulling his own weapon. Drop the gun. Kick it away. Or I shoot the woman first, then your daughter, then you. Make you watch them die before I kill you. Seo-yun whimpered, pressing closer to her father's leg. Her small hands were moving again, signing frantically. Daddy, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I made you bring me. I'm sorry. Kiera's heart shattered. This baby thought this was her fault. Don't hurt them, Miho said, his voice rougher now, the careful control fraying at the edges. Whatever you want, territory, money, connections, I'll give you. Just let the woman and my daughter leave. Everything you have will be mine anyway, Park replied. After you're dead. But maybe I keep the girl alive. Sell her to families who pay good money for pretty little girls. He smiled at Seo-yun with a gaze that made Kiera feel physically ill. She'll make someone very happy. The change in Miho was instantaneous and terrifying. His controlled facade shattered completely. Pure rage transformed his features into something primal and deadly. You just signed your death warrant, he said, his voice dropping to something subhuman. I'll kill you. I'll kill everyone you love. I'll burn your entire... Big words for man with empty gun, Park interrupted. Now drop it or I start shooting. A weapon pressed against Kiera's temple. She hadn't even seen the man move behind her. The cold metal against her skin made everything suddenly horrifically real. She was going to die. In a parking garage. Because she'd tried to help a child she didn't know. Miho's eyes met hers for one charged moment. She saw him weighing options, saw the cost-benefit analysis playing out behind those dark eyes. He was a stranger. Expendable. He owed her nothing. But then his gaze dropped to Seo-yun, to the little girl who was signing, "Save the nice lady Appa. Please save her," in desperate jerky movements. Something shifted in his expression. The gun lowered. "Let them go," Miho said, his voice carefully controlled again. "Both of them. And I'll cooperate." "No." Kiera heard herself shout, surprising everyone including herself. "Don't give up your weapon. He's going to kill you anyway." Park laughed. "Smart woman. Too smart." He nodded to the man holding the gun to Kiera's head. "Shoot her." Everything happened at once. Miho dropped his empty weapon and lunged forward with the desperate speed of a father who'd just heard his daughter scream. Dong-hyun, who'd been hiding in the shadows by the stairwell, emerged with a weapon, firing twice in rapid succession. The man holding the gun to Kiera's head jerked backward, his weapon discharging into the concrete ceiling as he fell. Kiera's ears rang from the gunshot, but her body was already moving on pure instinct. She grabbed Seo-yun's hand and ran. Not away from the violence. That would leave the child's father to die. Instead, she ran toward Miho's car where she could see another figure emerging from the driver's seat, also armed. More gunfire erupted behind her. She felt something hot and sharp graze her left shoulder. A bullet or concrete fragments, she couldn't tell. Pain bloomed bright and immediate, but adrenaline kept her moving. She stumbled, nearly falling, but caught herself and kept running with Seo-yun's hand clutched in hers. The little girl was crying silently, tears streaming down her face, but her legs were pumping hard, keeping pace. "Get down," someone shouted in English. Kiera hit the concrete, covering Seo-yun's small body with her own as bullets sparked off the car behind them. She felt the vibrations of each impact through the ground, felt Seo-yun trembling beneath her, felt her own terror threatening to overwhelm her. Then strong arms lifted them both. Miho, his face streaked with blood from where a bullet had grazed his temple, had somehow reached them. His suit jacket was torn, his perfect appearance shattered, but his eyes were focused and deadly calm. "Dong-hyun," he barked. "Cover us." More gunfire. Kiera heard men shouting in Korean, heard the squeal of tires, heard sirens in the distance. Someone must have called the police. Miho practically threw them into the back of the armored Mercedes, diving in after them as Dong-hyun slid into the driver's seat and floored the accelerator. The car shot forward with enough force to slam Kiera against the leather seat. Seo-yun was crying in earnest now, her small body shaking with sobs as Kiera held her close. The back window exploded inward, safety glass showering over them. Miho covered them both with his body and Kiera felt him jerk as something, a bullet, hit his back. "Sir." Dong-hyun shouted. "I'm fine." Vest caught it. "Just drive." They careened up the ramp and out of the parking garage just as 3 police cars screamed into the entrance, their sirens wailing. Dong-hyun took a hard right, then another, putting distance between them and the scene. In the back seat, Kiera held Seo-yun and tried to process what had just happened. She'd been shot at. Multiple times. She'd watched men die. She'd run through a gunfight carrying a child she didn't know. And now she was in a speeding car with a man who was clearly some kind of organized crime leader, fleeing a crime scene while her shoulder bled and her hands shook and her entire worldview shattered around her. "Are you hurt?" Miho demanded, his hands running over Seo-yun with frantic precision, checking for injuries. "Baby, are you hurt anywhere?" Seo-yun shook her head, still crying. "I'm okay, Appa." But you're bleeding. And the nice lady is bleeding too. Miho's gaze snapped to Kiera, noticing for the first time the blood seeping through her blouse at the shoulder. You were hit. I think it just grazed me, Kiera managed, her voice shaking. But I'm not sure. Everything happened so fast. He was already pulling a first aid kit from under the seat, because of course he had a first aid kit in his car, and examining her shoulder with gentle but efficient movements. The bullet passed through the fabric and took some skin, he said, his fingers surprisingly gentle as he cleaned the wound. It's not deep, but it needs to be properly treated. We'll take you to a private doctor. I need to go to a hospital. I need to call the police. I need to. You can't do any of those things, Miho interrupted, his voice firm but not unkind. Park Jin-suk's people will be watching the hospitals. And the police. He hesitated. Some of them are on Park's payroll. If you go to them, he'll know exactly where you are. Kira's blood ran cold. What are you saying? I'm saying that by helping us, by cutting me free, by being a witness to what happened, you've made yourself a target. His dark eyes held hers and she saw genuine regret there. I'm sorry. If I could undo it, protect you from this, I would. But the reality is that Park saw your face. He knows you helped me. And in my world, that makes you an enemy. Your world, Kiera repeated, her voice hollow. You mean organized crime? You're in the Mafia. Korean Mafia. Yes. The simple confirmation made everything real. She'd inserted herself into a gang war. She'd made enemies of people who trafficked in violence and death. I just wanted to help a little girl, she whispered. I know. Miho's voice was rough with emotion. And because you did, you saved both our lives. But it also put you in danger. Serious danger. So what happens now? Now you stay with us. Under protection. Until we can neutralize the threat. Neutralize, Kiera repeated. You mean kill them? I mean ensure they can never hurt you or my daughter. His jaw was set, his eyes hard. Whatever that takes. Seo-yun was watching them both, her small face still tear-streaked. Her hands moved in signs that Kiera recognized. Is the nice lady going to stay with us? Please let her stay. Miho's expression softened fractionally as he looked at his daughter. He responded in Korean, but Kiera could read the gentleness in his tone. What did you say to her? He asked. I told her you were going to stay with us for a little while. That we were going to keep you safe. He paused. Is that acceptable to you? Kiera looked around the car, at the shattered back window, at the blood on Miho's face, at the little girl who was looking at her with desperate hope. She thought about her apartment in the Sunset District. Her quiet, safe life. Her routine at the school. All of it felt impossibly far away now. Do I have a choice? She asked. There's always a choice, Miho replied. I can have my people set you up with a new identity, relocate you somewhere safe. You'd have to leave San Francisco, probably leave California. But you'd be alive. And you'd never see me again, Seo-yun signed, her small hands trembling. Please don't go. Kira's eyes filled with tears. This child, this sweet, brave little girl who'd just lived through a nightmare, was begging her to stay. Okay, she heard herself say. I'll stay. Until this is resolved. Relief flooded Miho's expression. Thank you. But I have conditions, Kiera continued, surprising herself with her own boldness. I need to contact my work. Tell them I'm taking emergency leave. And my friend Janet, she'll worry if I just disappear. I'll have someone handle your work situation. As for your friend, you can send her a message. But it has to be carefully worded. No details about where you are or what happened. And I want the truth, Kiera said firmly. No more half answers. If I'm going to be in your world, I need to understand what that world looks like. Miho studied her for a long moment. The truth might make you want to run. Then I'll run. But I deserve to know what I'm running from. Something like respect flickered in his eyes. Agreed. Once we're secure, I'll tell you everything. Dong-hyun spoke from the front seat in Korean. Miho responded, then turned back to Kiera. We're going to my primary residence. Secure. Cameras, guards, safe room. You'll be protected there. What about Park Jin-suk? Won't he just come after us? Let him try, Miho said, and the cold certainty in his voice made Kiera shiver. He made a mistake tonight. He threatened my daughter. And that's something I don't forgive. They drove in silence for several minutes, Kiera holding Seo-yun while Miho made rapid calls in Korean, his voice shifting from gentle when speaking to his daughter to ice-cold when issuing orders to his people. Kiera caught fragments, enough to understand that he was mobilizing resources, calling in favors, preparing for war. She should have been terrified. Instead, watching him stroke his daughter's hair between phone calls, seeing the way he checked on Kiera's shoulder wound with genuine concern, she felt something else entirely. She felt safe. Which was insane considering she was sitting in a bullet-riddled car with a crime lord who'd just been in a shootout. But there was something about the way Miho looked at Seo-yun, the fierce protectiveness, the tender devotion, that made Kiera believe he would burn the world down before he let anyone hurt his daughter. And somehow she'd been included in that circle of protection. "We're here," Dong-hyun announced, pulling into an underground garage beneath a gleaming high-rise in Pacific Heights. Kiera's breath caught. This wasn't just a nice building. This was one of the most expensive addresses in San Francisco, the kind of place where penthouses sold for $20 million. "You live here?" "Top floor," Miho confirmed. "It's secure. No one gets in without multiple security checks." They rode a private elevator that required both a key card and a fingerprint scan. Seo-yun had stopped crying but was still clinging to Kiera, her small hand gripping Kiera's blouse. The elevator opened directly into a penthouse that took Kiera's breath away. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the San Francisco Bay. The decor was minimalist elegance, all clean lines and expensive materials, with subtle touches that suggested a decorator with impeccable taste. But it was the corner of the living room that caught Kiera's attention. A play area filled with toys, books, and a child-sized table covered in art supplies. A splash of color and life in the otherwise austere space. "Mrs. Han," Miho called out, and an elderly Korean woman hurried from another room, her face creasing with worry when she saw them. She spoke rapidly in Korean, her hands fluttering over Seo-yun, checking for injuries. "She's fine," Miho assured her in English, probably for Kiera's benefit. "But we had some trouble. This is Kiera Thompson. She'll be staying with us for a while. She needs medical attention." Mrs. Han's sharp eyes assessed Kiera, taking in the blood, the torn blouse, the shell-shocked expression. Whatever she saw must have satisfied her because she nodded and gestured for Kiera to follow. "Wait," Seo-yun said, her hand still gripping Kiera's. "Don't leave me." Kiera looked at Miho, uncertain. "Mrs. Han can treat your shoulder in Seo-yun's room," he said gently. "That way she can see you're safe." So that's how Kiera found herself sitting on the edge of a princess bed in the most luxurious child's bedroom she'd ever seen, while an elderly Korean woman who spoke minimal English cleaned and bandaged her shoulder with the efficiency of someone who'd done this many times before. Seo-yun sat close, watching anxiously, her stuffed rabbit clutched to her chest. "You're very brave," Kiera said softly to the little girl. "What you did tonight, staying calm, trusting me, that took a lot of courage." Seo-yun's hands moved hesitantly. "You understood me. No one ever understands my signs." Kiera's heart clenched. "You taught yourself sign language?" A small nod. "From videos. And books. I wanted a secret language. One that was just mine." "Why secret?" Seo-yun's expression turned sad. "Because everyone is always watching Appa. Always listening. But nobody sees me. Not really. I'm invisible." The words were so similar to what Marcus had said that Kiera felt tears prick her eyes. Here was another child who felt unseen, despite being surrounded by people. "I see you," Kiera signed back, her movements slow and deliberate so Seo-yun could follow. "And you're not invisible. You're brave and smart and kind." Seo-yun's eyes filled with tears. The good kind, the kind that came from being understood. She threw her arms around Kiera's neck and Kiera held her, feeling this small stranger burrow into her heart with surprising speed. "She likes you," Mrs. Han said in halting English. First time she trusts someone new since her mother died. Her mother died when baby born. Mr. Kong, he raised her alone. Love her very much. But she struggled for words. He not know how to be soft. He protect, yes. Give her everything. But she need more than protection. Kiera understood. Seo-yun had a father who would kill for her, who would give her anything money could buy. But what she needed was someone who could speak her language, literally and figuratively. Someone who saw her. Miho appeared in the doorway, freshly showered and changed into clean clothes. The blood was gone from his face, revealing a fresh bandage at his temple. "How is she?" he asked, his eyes on Seo-yun. "Physically fine. Emotionally." Kiera hesitated. "She's been through a lot tonight." "I know." His voice was rough with guilt. "I never should have brought her. It was reckless and selfish and—" "You thought it would be safe," Kiera interrupted. "You couldn't have known it was a trap." "I should have known. It's my job to know." He crossed the room and knelt beside his daughter. "Princess, I'm so sorry. You were scared and it's my fault." Seo-yun's hands moved. "It's not your fault, Appa. The bad men are mean. You protected us." Miho's expression crumpled. "You're signing. You've been learning to sign and I didn't even notice. I wanted to surprise you. But you're always busy." The guilt on Miho's face was devastating to witness. "I'm sorry, baby. I'm so sorry I didn't see what you needed." He pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly, and Kiera saw his shoulders shake with silent emotion. "I'll learn," he said, his voice muffled against Seo-yun's hair. "I'll learn your language. I promise." Seo-yun pulled back, her face hopeful. "Really? Really? Will you teach me?" The little girl looked at Kiera. "Will you help me teach Appa? Please?" Kiera felt the weight of the request, the trust implicit in it. This child wanted her to stay, to be part of her life, to bridge the communication gap between father and daughter. "I'll help," Kiera heard herself promise. "I'll teach you both." Miho's eyes met hers over Seo-yun's head and something passed between them. Gratitude, yes. But also something deeper. Recognition. He saw that she understood his daughter in ways he didn't yet. And instead of resenting it, he was grateful for it. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For everything. For saving us. For staying. For—" He gestured helplessly. "For seeing her." "She deserves to be seen," Kiera replied simply. Mrs. Han cleared her throat, speaking in Korean. Miho nodded. "She says Seo-yun needs to sleep," he translated. "It's been a traumatic night and rest will help." But when he tried to take Seo-yun to bed, she clung to Kiera. "I want the nice lady to stay," she said in English. "Please, Appa. I don't want to be alone." Miho looked at Kiera questioningly. "I can stay until she falls asleep," Kiera offered. Relief flooded his face. "Thank you." So Kiera found herself lying on top of the covers of a princess bed in a crime lord's penthouse, with a 6-year-old stranger curled against her side, while outside the windows, San Francisco glittered with lights that seemed to belong to a different world entirely. Seo-yun fell asleep within minutes, exhausted by fear and adrenaline. Kiera carefully extracted herself and slipped out of the room. Miho was waiting in the hallway. "She's asleep," Kiera said softly. "Thank you. I know this is." He gestured vaguely. "All of this is insane. You shouldn't be here. You should be home, safe, living your normal life. Too late for that now. I know. And I'm sorry." He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture that made him look younger, more vulnerable. "Come with me. I promised you the truth. It's time I delivered." The truth revealed. Miho led Kiera to his office, a room that managed to be both luxurious and intimidating. Dark wood, leather furniture, and walls lined with books in Korean and English. But it was the view that captured Kiera's attention. The Golden Gate Bridge visible in the distance, lit up against the night sky. "Sit," Miho said, gesturing to a leather chair across from his desk. "Would you like something to drink? You've had a shock. Water would be good." He poured her a glass from a crystal decanter, then one for himself. But instead of sitting behind his desk, a power move that would have emphasized the distance between them, he settled in the chair beside hers. "Where should I start?" he asked. "Start with who you are." "Really?" He took a breath. "My name is Kang Miho. I'm the head of the Korean Syndicate in San Francisco, an organization my grandfather founded in the 1960s when he immigrated from Seoul. We started as a mutual aid society, helping Korean immigrants who face discrimination and violence from other gangs. Over time we evolved into something more. Something less innocent." "You mean organized crime?" "Yes." He didn't flinch from the words. "We run legitimate businesses, restaurants, import-export companies, real estate. But we also control illegal gambling, certain drug distribution networks, and provide protection services. Protection services, Kiera repeated. You mean you extort people? In some cases, yes. In others, we genuinely protect Korean business owners from other gangs who would prey on them. It's complicated. It sounds like a rationalization. It is, Miho agreed, surprising her with his honesty. I won't pretend that what I do is noble. I've made choices that keep me up at night. I've hurt people. I've ordered things done that would horrify you if you knew the details. Then why do it? Because I was born into it, he said simply. My grandfather built this organization. My father expanded it. And when my father died, the weight fell to me. I was 23 years old, fresh out of business school, and suddenly responsible for hundreds of people's livelihoods. Their families. Their futures. He stood, moving to the window, his shoulders tense. I tried to go legitimate. Reduce the illegal operations, focus on the businesses. But it's not that simple. The legitimate businesses only exist because the illegal operations fund them. The protection we offer is real. There are Russian gangs, Chinese triads, motorcycle clubs that would devour Korean businesses if we didn't exist. And the people who work for me, the families who depend on us, they don't have other options. So you're saying you're trapped? I'm saying I'm making the best choices I can in a system that doesn't offer good options. He turned back to her. Does that make me a good person? No. But I try to be better than my father was. Better than my grandfather. I don't traffic in people. I don't allow drugs near schools. I protect women and children. And I'm slowly transitioning everything toward legitimacy, even if it takes another generation to complete. Kiera absorbed this, trying to reconcile the man in front of her with the image of a mobster from movies. What about Park Jin-suk? What's his story? Park used to work for my father. Mid-level management. When I took over and started changing policies, cutting out some of the more violent operations, redistributing territory more fairly, he disagreed with my methods. Said I was weak. He left and started his own organization, trying to muscle in on our territory. And tonight he made his move. The meeting was supposed to be a negotiation, but it was really an execution. He planned to kill me, take over my organization, and probably ransom Seo-yeon back to my mother's family in Korea. His jaw clenched. He would have succeeded if you hadn't intervened. Why was your gun empty? Miho's expression turned self-recriminating. Earlier today there was an incident at one of our restaurants. 3 men tried to rob it. Not our people, just opportunistic criminals. I was there, handled it, used my last bullet. In the rush to make it to the meeting with Park, I forgot to reload. A rookie mistake that almost cost me everything. He sat back down, his elbows on his knees, his head in his hands. I brought my daughter to a gunfight with an empty weapon, he said, his voice raw. What kind of father does that? The kind who was trying to show his daughter she was important, Kiera replied quietly. You made a mistake. But you also fought like hell to protect her. She shouldn't have needed protecting. She should have been home, safe, nowhere near my world. He looked up, his eyes red-rimmed. My wife, Seo-yeon's mother, she died because of my world. We were driving home from a charity event when our car was attacked by rivals. The bullets were meant for me, but Jiwoo was hit instead. She died before the ambulance arrived. Oh my God, Kiera breathed. Miho, I'm so sorry. I swore after that I would keep Seo-yeon separate from my business. Safe from the violence. And tonight I brought her directly into danger because I was too weak to tell her no, to leave her at home where she belonged. She has separation anxiety, Kiera said. I saw it. That's not weakness, that's responding to your daughter's emotional needs. It almost got her killed. But it didn't. He's safe. You kept her safe. Kiera leaned forward. Miho, you can't protect her from everything. You can't keep her in a bubble forever. I can try. No, you can't. Because she's already breaking out of that bubble. She taught herself sign language because she needed her own space. Her own language that wasn't monitored or controlled. She's 6 years old and she's already fighting for independence. Miho looked stricken. I didn't know she felt that trapped. I don't think she feels trapped exactly. I think she feels invisible. You love her desperately, that's obvious. But you show that love through protection and material things. What she needs is connection. Understanding. Someone who speaks her language. Will you teach me? The question was vulnerable, almost pleading. Will you teach me to sign? To understand her the way you do. Of course. But Miho, it's not just about the signs. It's about listening. Really listening. Seeing who she is, not just who you want to keep safe. He was quiet for a long moment. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Someone who would run. Or judge. Or be too terrified to be honest with me. He smiled slightly. You should be terrified of me, you know. Most people are. Should I be? Probably. I'm not a good man, Kiera. I've done things that would make you hate me if you knew the details. Then don't tell me the details, she said. Tell me who you want to be. Tell me about the man who reads his daughter bedtime stories and feels guilty about working too much. Tell me about the father who would die to protect his child. That man and the other man are the same person. I know. And that's complicated. But right now I'm choosing to see the father. Is that okay? Something shifted in Miho's expression. Surprise, maybe, or gratitude. More than okay. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of the evening settling over them. What happens now? Kiera finally asked. With Park Jin-suk. With all of this. Now I make sure he can never threaten my family again. Miho's voice was cold again, the leader reasserting himself. I have people tracking his movements, his associates, his resources. And when I find him, I'll end this. Permanently. You mean you'll kill him? If necessary, yes. Kiera should have been horrified. Should have protested, argued for calling the police, for finding a legal solution. But she thought of Park Jin-suk's eyes when he'd looked at Seo-yun. Thought of what he'd said about selling a little girl. And she found she didn't have any moral objections to Miho protecting his daughter by any means necessary. How long do you think it will take? She asked instead. Days, maybe a week. Park went underground after tonight's failure, but he'll surface. And when he does, I'll be ready. And until then? Until then you stay here. Safe. Protected. He paused. Is that acceptable? Kiera thought about her apartment, her job, her normal life. Thought about Janet, who would be worried. Thought about her students, who would wonder where Miss Thompson had gone. But then she thought about Seo-yun, sleeping peacefully down the hall because Kiera had promised to stay. I'll need to contact my job, she said. And send a message to Janet so she doesn't file a missing persons report. I'll have my people handle it. What should we tell your work? Family emergency. I need a week or two of personal leave. Done. And your friend. Kiera pulled out her phone, composing a careful message. Janet, I'm so sorry for the short notice. My cousin in Seattle had a medical emergency and I had to leave town quickly to help with her kids. I'll be out of cell range for a few days, but I'm safe. We'll explain everything when I'm back. Please tell the principal I've requested emergency leave. XX Kiera. She showed it to Miho. Is that okay? He read it carefully. It's good. Vague enough not to give details, specific enough to be believable. Kiera hit send, then turned off her phone's location services at Miho's instruction. I should show you to your room, he said, standing. You need rest. It's been a traumatic night. He led her down a hallway to a guest suite that was larger than her entire apartment. King-sized bed, private bathroom with a soaking tub, and a walk-in closet that was currently empty. I'll have Mrs. Han bring you some clothes tomorrow, Miho said. For tonight, there are robes and basic toiletries in the bathroom. This is too much, Kiera protested. It's the guest room. Nothing special. If this was nothing special, Kiera couldn't imagine what special looked like. Thank you, she said. For everything. For trusting me with Seo-yun. For being honest about your life. Thank you for not running, Miho replied. For staying. For caring about my daughter even though you have no reason to. I have reasons, Kiera said softly. I'm a teacher. I've dedicated my life to helping children who feel invisible. Seo-yun needs someone who sees her. And right now that someone is me. She's lucky to have you. They stood in the doorway, the space between them charged with something Kiera couldn't quite name. Gratitude, yes. But also connection. Recognition. Get some rest, Miho said finally. Tomorrow we'll figure out next steps. After he left, Kiera sank onto the impossibly soft bed and tried to process everything that had happened. 12 hours ago she'd been grading papers in her classroom. Now she was hiding in a penthouse with a crime lord and his daughter, wanted by a rival gang, protected by men with guns. Her quiet, safe life was gone. And the terrifying part was that she wasn't sure she wanted it back. Morning after. Kiera woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows and the disorienting realization that she had no idea where she was. Then it all came flooding back. The parking garage. The guns. Seo-yun's frightened face. Miho's dark eyes as he'd promised to keep her safe. She sat up slowly, her shoulder aching from the bullet graze. Mrs. Han had done a good job with the bandaging, but it still hurt. A soft knock on the door made her tense. "Come in," she called. Mrs. Han entered carrying a tray with coffee, fruit, and what looked like Korean rice porridge. "Good morning, Miss Thompson. Mr. Kong say you need rest, need food." "Thank you. You didn't have to. It's my job," Mrs. Han said firmly, setting the tray on the bedside table. "You saved Miss Seo-yun. You saved Mr. Kong. Now we take care of you." She also brought clothes, jeans and soft sweaters in Kiera's size, along with undergarments that fit perfectly. "How did you know my size?" Kiera asked, startled. Mrs. Han smiled mysteriously. "Mr. Kong, he very thorough." After Mrs. Han left, Kiera ate the porridge, which was surprisingly comforting, and took a long shower, careful to keep her bandaged shoulder dry. The bathroom was stocked with expensive products, and by the time she emerged she felt almost human again. She dressed in the provided clothes and ventured out of her room. The penthouse was quiet, sunlight streaming through the massive windows. She followed the sound of voices to the kitchen and found Seo-yun sitting at the counter while Mrs. Han prepared breakfast. The little girl's face lit up when she saw Kiera. "You're awake. Appa said I had to let you sleep, but I've been waiting forever." "Good morning, sweetheart. Did you sleep okay?" "I had bad dreams. But then I remembered you were here and I felt better." Kiera's heart melted. She settled onto the stool beside Seo-yun. "What are we having for breakfast?" "Hotteok," Seo-yun said proudly. "It's like Korean pancakes with sweet filling. Mrs. Han makes the best ones." "Where's your dad?" "Working. He's always working." The resignation in her voice was heartbreaking for a 6-year-old. As if summoned, Miho appeared in the kitchen doorway. He'd clearly been up for hours, dressed in another expensive suit, his hair perfectly styled, looking every inch the powerful businessman. But his eyes softened when he saw Kiera. "You're awake. How's your shoulder?" "Sore but okay. Mrs. Han did a good job with the bandaging." "Good." He poured himself coffee with the practiced movements of someone who'd done this thousands of times. "I have updates on the situation with Park. Can we talk after breakfast?" "Of course." Breakfast was surprisingly domestic. Seo-yun chattered about her favorite books, asked Kiera about being a teacher, and demonstrated some of the signs she'd learned. Miho watched with an expression Kiera couldn't quite read, part sadness, part wonder. "Will you show me?" he asked his daughter. "The signs you know?" Seo-yun's face lit up. She spent the next 10 minutes teaching her father basic signs. "Hello, goodbye, I love you, thank you." Miho was attentive, patient, practicing each sign until he got it right. "You're doing great," Kiera signed to him, and he smiled, a genuine smile that transformed his entire face. After breakfast, Miho asked Mrs. Han to take Seo-yun to her playroom, then led Kiera back to his office. "What's the update?" she asked once the door was closed. "Park Jin-suk is in hiding, but my people have located 3 of his safe houses. We're watching them all. It's only a matter of time before he surfaces. And when he does, I'll handle it." His voice was flat, final. "Miho. This isn't negotiable, Kiera. He threatened my daughter. He tried to kill us both. He's made it clear he won't stop until I'm dead, and Seo-yun is used as leverage. I can't let that stand." He understood his logic. In his world, showing mercy was weakness. And weakness got people killed. "I'm not judging you," she said quietly. "I just want you to be safe. For Seo-yun's sake." Something in his expression softened. "I'll be careful. I have too much to lose now." Speaking of Seo-yun, I was thinking about her education. "Is she in school?" Miho shook his head. "I have private tutors come to the penthouse. It's safer than sending her to a regular school." "Safer maybe. But more isolating. She needs to be around other children, Miho. She needs social interaction, friends her own age. She has playdates. Supervised ones with children from other Korean families in the organization." So she only interacts with children whose parents are in the same business as you. That's not diversity, Miho. That's an echo chamber. He bristled slightly. I'm protecting her. I know. But you're also isolating her. She taught herself sign language because she felt invisible, trapped in a world where everyone watches but no one really sees her. Don't you think that isolation is part of the problem? Miho was quiet for a long moment. What do you suggest? Let me work with her. Not just on sign language but on social skills, emotional intelligence. Give her tools to navigate the world, not just hide from it. You want to be her teacher. I want to help her thrive, not just survive. Miho studied her intently. Why? Why do you care so much about a child you just met? Because she reminds me of my students. Bright, sensitive kids who feel invisible because they communicate differently. Because I know what it's like to feel isolated. And because... She hesitated. Because she deserves better than growing up in a gilded cage. Even if that cage keeps her safe? Safety isn't the same as happiness. You can give her both. Miho turned to look out the window, his shoulders tense. My wife used to say something similar. That I was so focused on protecting Seoyeon that I'd forget to let her live. She was right. She usually was. He turned back to Kiera. Hey. Work with Seoyeon. Teach her, help her, give her what I'm too blind to see she needs. But the moment there's any threat, any danger, she goes back into lockdown. Understood. Understood. Over the next 3 days, Kiera fell into an unexpected routine. Mornings with Seoyeon, teaching her more advanced sign language, reading together, doing art projects. The little girl was bright, creative, and starved for attention. She soaked up everything Kiera taught her like a sponge. Afternoons were for Miho's sign language lessons. He was a quick study, dedicated and focused. Within 2 days he could hold basic conversations with his daughter. Simple exchanges that nonetheless brought tears to Seoyeon's eyes. Appa understands me now, she signed to Kiera one afternoon. He really sees me. Evenings were family time. Dinner together, stories before bed. Quiet moments that felt almost normal despite the armed guards outside and the constant security measures. And late at night, after Seoyeon was asleep, Kiera and Miho would talk. About his wife who'd been a piano teacher before she died. About Kiera's mother who'd taught her to see people's hearts before their circumstances. About the weight of responsibility and the cost of choices. I never thought I'd be able to talk to someone like this, Miho admitted one night as they sat in his living room, the city glittering below them. Most people in my life want something. Or they're afraid of me. Or both. I'm probably a little afraid of you, Kiera said honestly. But I also see who you are with Seoyeon. And that person isn't scary at all. That person is who I wish I could be all the time. Maybe you can be. Maybe you just need to let yourself. He looked at her with an intensity that made her breath catch. You make me want to try. The moment stretched between them, charged with possibility. Then his phone buzzed, shattering the intimacy. Miho glanced at it and his expression went cold. They found Park. He's at one of the safe houses in Oakland. What are you going to do? What I have to do? He stood, already shifting into the leader she'd seen that first night. I need to handle this. Tonight. Miho. Stay here. Stay with Seoyeon. Donghyun and 4 guards will be here. You'll be safe. I don't care about me being safe. I care about you coming back. He stopped, turned, and for a moment she saw vulnerability in his eyes. Why? Because Seoyeon needs her father. And because... She couldn't finish the sentence, couldn't name the feeling growing in her chest. Miho crossed the room and cupped her face gently. I'll come back. I promise. Then he was gone, leaving Kiera alone with a sleeping child and the terrifying knowledge that she'd become emotionally invested in a man whose world was built on violence. And that she didn't know how to walk away anymore. Kiera couldn't sleep. She tried. She'd gone to her room, changed into the silk pajamas Mrs. Han had provided, climbed into the impossibly comfortable bed, and stared at the ceiling for 2 hours while her mind spiraled through worst-case scenarios. Miho walking into a trap. Miho outnumbered and outgunned. Miho not coming back. Seoyeon waking up tomorrow morning to discover she was an orphan. At 2:47 a.m., Kiera gave up on sleep and padded down the hallway in bare feet. The penthouse was dark except for the security lights that automatically illuminated as she moved through the space. Through the windows, San Francisco glowed with thousands of lights, a city that never truly slept. She found herself in Miho's office, drawn to the wall of windows that offered a view of the Bay Bridge. Somewhere out there he was confronting the man who tried to kill them both. "Miss Thompson." Kiera jumped, spinning to find Dong-hyun standing in the doorway. The head of security looked as composed as ever, despite the late hour. "I'm sorry," Kiera said. "I couldn't sleep. I was just worried about Mr. Kong." "It wasn't a question. Is that obvious?" "He's worth worrying about," Dong-hyun replied, moving to stand beside her at the window. "He's a good man trapped in a bad situation. Most people in his position would have become monsters by now. But he fights to be better every day." "How long have you worked for him?" 15 years. I worked for his father first, but when Mr. Kong took over he asked me to stay. Said he needed people who would tell him the truth, not just what he wanted to hear." "And do you?" "Tell him the truth. Always. Even when it makes him angry." Dong-hyun paused. "He cares about you. I've never seen him trust someone outside the organization so quickly." Kiera felt her cheeks heat. "I think he just appreciates what I'm doing for Seo-yun. It's more than that. The way he looks at you." Dong-hyun shook his head. "I've known him since he was a young man. I saw how he loved his wife. And I'm seeing something similar now." "That's impossible. We barely know each other." "Sometimes knowing happens quickly. Especially in extreme circumstances." He checked his phone. "They've engaged Park's people. The operation is underway." Kiera's stomach dropped. "Is he safe?" "Can you tell? Mr. Kong is very good at what he does. And he has excellent people with him. But in this business there are no guarantees." They stood in silence, watching the city, both waiting for news that might never come. "Why do you stay?" Kiera asked after a while. "In this life, I mean. You seem like someone who could do anything." "Loyalty," Dong-hyun said simply. "Mr. Kang's father saved my life when I first came to America. I was nobody, illegal immigrant, no papers, no money. The elder Mr. Kong gave me work, protection, a purpose. When he died and his son took over, I saw an opportunity to repay that debt by helping the younger Mr. Kong build something better than what his father had." "Is it working? Is it getting better?" "Slowly. The violence is less than it was. The legitimate businesses are growing. The younger generation in the organization wants to move away from the criminal enterprises." He paused. "But change is slow. And dangerous. Men like Park Jin-suk represent the old way. Violence and intimidation profit over people. They resist change because change threatens their power. So tonight is about more than just revenge. Tonight is about the future. If Mr. Kong eliminates Park, he sends a message to the other families. The old way is dying. Either adapt or be removed." Dong-hyun's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and relief flooded his features. "They have Park in custody. Mr. Kong is unharmed. They're bringing Park to a secure location for interrogation." Kiera sagged against the window, tension draining from her body. "He's okay. Thank God. He'll be back within the hour. You should try to get some rest." But Kiera knew she wouldn't rest until she saw Miho with her own eyes, confirmed that he was whole and safe. She returned to her room but left the door cracked, listening for the sound of the elevator. At 4:23 a.m. she heard it, the soft chime that announced the elevator's arrival, followed by low voices speaking in Korean. Kiera emerged from her room to find Miho standing in the foyer, speaking with Dong-hyun. His suit was rumpled, there was blood on his knuckles and exhaustion lined his face. But he was alive. Their eyes met across the space and something passed between them. Relief, gratitude, something deeper that neither was ready to name. "You should be asleep," Miho said, his voice rough. "I was waiting for you." Dong-hyun excused himself quietly, leaving them alone in the dim hallway. "Are you hurt?" Kiera asked, moving closer to examine the blood on his hands. "Not my blood." Park resisted arrest. "Is he alive? For now. Being held until I decide what to do with him." Miho's jaw was tight. "He admitted to everything. The ambush, the plan to kidnap Seo-yun, the intention to kill me. He's been working with the Vietnamese families, trying to create an alliance to push us out of San Francisco entirely. What will you do with him?" "What I have to do." He looked at her, his eyes hard. "This isn't a world where people get second chances, Kiera. Park tried to kill my daughter. There's only one way this ends. She should have been horrified. Should have argued for mercy, for the legal system, for anything other than the cold finality in his voice. But she thought of Park's cruel eyes when he'd looked at Seo-yun. Thought of what he'd said about selling her. And she found she couldn't muster any objection to whatever Miho decided to do. I understand, she said quietly. Do you? Miho stepped closer, his eyes searching hers. Do you really understand what I am? What I'm capable of? I understand that you're a father who would do anything to protect his daughter. I understand that you're trying to build something better in a world that makes that almost impossible. And I understand that sometimes there are no good choices, only less terrible ones. Something in his expression cracked. I don't deserve your understanding. Maybe not. But you have it anyway. He reached out, his bloodied hand hovering near her face before he pulled back. I should clean up. You should sleep. Miho. Please. His voice was strained. Please don't look at me like that right now. Not when I still have blood on my hands. Not when I'm about to do something that will confirm every terrible thing you should think about me. What if I don't think terrible things about you? Then you're not seeing clearly. He turned and walked toward his bedroom, leaving Kiera standing alone in the hallway, her heart aching for this man who couldn't accept that he might be worthy of compassion. She returned to her room but didn't sleep. Instead, she lay awake thinking about moral absolutes and the gray spaces between right and wrong, about loving someone despite their darkness rather than because you were blind to it. And she thought about a little girl sleeping peacefully down the hall who deserved a father who would come home to her, whatever the cost. Breakthrough. The next morning, Seo-yun knew something was different. Children had an instinct for these things, an ability to sense when the adults around them were keeping secrets or carrying burdens. She was quieter than usual at breakfast, watching her father with concerned eyes. Did you have bad dreams, Appa? She signed. You look tired. Just work, princess, Miho replied in Korean, signing along with his words, a habit he'd developed over the past few days. Nothing for you to worry about. But Seo-yun's expression suggested she wasn't convinced. After breakfast, Kiera took the little girl to her playroom for their morning lesson. They were working on reading comprehension. Kiera had discovered that Seo-yun was reading well above her grade level, probably from spending so much time with books as her primary companions. Can I ask you something? Seo-yun said in English, setting down the book they'd been reading. About grown-up stuff? Of course, sweetheart. What's on your mind? Do you like my Appa? Kiera's breath caught. Of course I like your father. He's a good man. No, I mean. Seo-yun struggled to find the words. Do you like him like how people like each other in stories? Like how the prince likes the princess? What makes you ask that? Kiera managed. Because he looks at you the way he used to look at Iyama in pictures. And you look at him the same way. And when you're together, the sad goes away from his eyes. Seo-yun's expression was impossibly earnest. I like it when the sad goes away. Kiera felt tears prick her eyes. This child was 6 years old and already carrying the weight of her father's grief, measuring her happiness by his. Your Appa has been very kind to me, Kiera said carefully. And I care about both of you very much. But grown-up feelings are complicated. Because of the bad men? Because Appa has to do scary things sometimes. How much do you know about your father's work? Kiera asked gently. Seo-yun shrugged. I know people are scared of him. I know he has to be strong and tough because it's his job to protect people. Mrs. Han says he's like a warrior, like in the old Korean stories. Warriors have to fight sometimes even when they don't want to. It was a surprisingly mature understanding for a 6-year-old, wrapped in child-appropriate metaphors. That's right, Kiera confirmed. And sometimes warriors get tired. They need people who see them not just as warriors but as people. You see him as a person. I can tell. Seo-yun climbed into Kiera's lap, something she'd been doing more frequently. I want you to stay forever. Not just until the bad man is gone. Forever and ever. Kiera held her close, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo. I'm here now, sweetheart. That's what matters. But you'll leave eventually. Everyone leaves eventually. Her small voice was matter-of-fact, resigned in a way that broke Kiera's heart. Yama left. Mrs. Park, who used to be my nanny, left. Appa's friends who used to visit stopped coming. People always leave. Oh, baby. Kiera turned Seo-yun to face her, making sure the little girl could see her face clearly. I'm not planning to leave. Not anytime soon. But you will eventually. When you don't have to hide anymore. When it's safe. You'll go back to your real life. Seo-yun's eyes filled with tears. And I'll miss you so much. What if? Kiera stopped, unsure if she should make promises she might not be able to keep. What if this could be part of my real life? What if I could be here with you even after the danger is over? Really? Hope blazed across Seo-yun's face. You'd really stay? I'd like to. If your Appa agrees. If it's what everyone wants. I want it. I want it so much. Seo-yun threw her arms around Kiera's neck. Please stay. Please be my new Yama. The words hung in the air like a prayer. Kiera held this child who'd somehow worked her way into Kiera's heart with startling speed, and realized that she meant it. She wanted to stay. Wanted to be part of this strange, complicated, dangerous family. She'd spent 3 years hiding from life, using her work as a shield against the risk of loving and losing again. But Seo-yun, and if she was honest with herself, Miho too, had cracked that shield wide open. Let's take this one day at a time, Kiera said gently. But I promise I'm not going anywhere right now. Okay. Okay. Seo-yun wiped her eyes. Can we do art now? I want to paint a picture of our family. Our family. You, me and Appa. And Mrs. Han. And maybe Donghyun uncle because he's always here. She paused. Is that okay? To call us a family. That's more than okay, sweetheart. That's perfect. They spent the next hour painting. Seo-yun creating a charmingly childish portrait of stick figures holding hands in front of a tall building, while Kiera helped mix colors and offered encouragement. They were so absorbed in the activity that neither of them heard Miho enter the playroom until he spoke. What are we creating today? Seo-yun jumped up, paint-stained hands and all, and ran to her father. Appa. I made a picture of our family. She held up the painting proudly. The stick figures now had names written below them in careful, childish Korean. Appa. Kiera same, teacher Kiera. Seo-yun. Mrs. Han. Donghyun uncle. Miho's expression went very still as he studied the painting. When he looked up, his eyes found Kiera's and she saw something raw and vulnerable there. It's beautiful, princess, he said, his voice thick with emotion. The best picture you've ever made. Can we hang it in your office? So you can see our family even when you're working? Absolutely. I'll put it right on my desk. Seo-yun beamed, then announced she needed to wash her hands. She scampered off to her bathroom, leaving Kiera and Miho alone. Our family, Miho repeated quietly, still holding the painting. She called you part of our family. I hope that's okay, Kiera said. She's been asking questions about how long I'm staying. About what happens when the danger passes. What did you tell her? That I'm not planning to leave. Not yet. Kiera stood, moving closer to him. Miho, I know this is complicated. I know we barely know each other and the circumstances are insane, and I'm probably not thinking clearly because of adrenaline and trauma bonding and... Kiera. He set down the painting and took her hands. Stop. I just need you to know that I'm not here out of obligation. I'm not staying just because of Seo-yun even though I love her. I'm staying because... She couldn't finish. Couldn't quite name the feeling that had been growing in her chest every time she saw him with his daughter. Every time they talked late into the night. Every time he looked at her like she was something precious and impossible. Because... Miho prompted, his thumbs stroking over her knuckles. Because being here feels right. Because this, you Seo-yun, this strange life, feels more like home than anything has in 3 years. And that terrifies me. Why does it terrify you? Because what if I'm wrong? What if this is just proximity and shared trauma and I'm confusing gratitude for something more? What if I'm making decisions based on emotion instead of logic? Miho cupped her face with both hands, his dark eyes intense. What if you're not wrong? What if this is exactly what it feels like? Two people finding each other in impossible circumstances and deciding to hold on anyway. Is that what this is for you? Kiera whispered. Because I need to know. I need to know I'm not imagining this connection. You're not imagining anything. His voice was rough with emotion. I've spent 5 years convinced I would never feel this way again. That the part of me that could love someone died with Jiwoo. But then you stepped into that parking garage and saved my daughter, and you've been saving us both ever since. Miho. Let me finish. Please. He rested his forehead against hers. You see me. Not the leader, not the criminal, not the monster. You see the father, the man who reads bedtime stories and feels guilty about working too much. And when you look at me, I feel like that man is enough. Like maybe I don't have to be perfect or completely clean to be worthy of something good. You are worthy, Kiera said fiercely. You're trying so hard to be better, to build something good for Seo-yun. That counts for something. Does it count enough for you to stay? Not just until the danger passes, but after. Kiera's heart was hammering against her ribs. Are you asking me to be part of your life permanently? I'm asking if you'd consider it. I know it's fast. I know it's insane. But I also know that I've never felt this certain about anything except Seo-yun. He pulled back slightly to look at her. I'm falling in love with you, Kiera Thompson. And I think you might be falling in love with me too. She should have denied it. Should have said it was too soon, too complicated, too dangerous. Instead, she heard herself say, I think I've already fallen. The kiss was inevitable, slow and deep and full of all the things they hadn't said yet. Miho kissed her like she was precious, like she was his salvation, like he was memorizing the moment. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Kiera laughed shakily. This is insane. Completely, Miho agreed, smiling against her hair. But I've made a career out of calculated risks. And you, Kiera Thompson, are a risk I'm willing to take. Even though I come with moral complications, even though I'll probably argue with you about your business practices and push you to go legitimate faster. Especially because of those things. I need someone who challenges me, who doesn't just accept everything I do. Ju was like that. She'd call me out when I was being ruthless or short-sighted. I need that voice in my life again. And Seo-yun? Seo-yun already loves you. She's been happier these past few days than I've seen her in months. You've given her something I couldn't. Someone who speaks her language, who sees her as more than just someone to protect. They heard small footsteps approaching and separated just as Seo-yun returned from washing her hands. She looked between them, then smiled. A knowing, delighted smile that suggested she'd sensed exactly what had just happened. Are you staying forever now? She signed to Kiera. Kiera glanced at Miho, who nodded slightly. I'm staying, Kiera signed back. If you'll have me. Seo-yun launched herself at Kiera with a squeal of joy, and Miho wrapped his arms around both of them, creating a circle of warmth and belonging that felt like the family Kiera hadn't known she was missing. For the first time since her mother's death, Kiera felt like she'd come home. The final threat. The moment of peace lasted exactly 47 hours. 2 days of playing house. Of Kiera teaching Seo-yun in the mornings, having family dinners in the evenings, falling asleep in Miho's arms at night after they'd put his daughter to bed. 2 days of pretending that the danger had passed, that Park Jin-suk was contained, that they could build a life together without consequence. Then Dong-hyun's urgent voice shattered the illusion. Sir, we have a situation. Miho was in his office, reviewing reports on the legitimate business operations, when Dong-hyun burst in without knocking. A breach of protocol that immediately signaled emergency. What happened? Miho was already on his feet. Park escaped. 20 minutes ago. He killed 2 guards and disappeared into the city. Dong-hyun's face was grim. We have every available person searching, but he knows our protocols. He knows our safe houses. And sir. He hesitated. Before he escaped, he told the guards that he was coming here. For Seo-yun. Miho's blood turned to ice. Lock down the building. Full security protocol. Where's Seo-yun? In her playroom with Miss Thompson. Get them to the safe room. Now. Miho was already moving, his hand automatically going to the weapon he kept in his desk drawer. He checked the magazine, full this time he'd made sure of it, and headed for the playroom. Kiera looked up when he entered, her smile fading immediately when she saw his expression. What's wrong? We need to move. No. Safe room protocol. He was already scooping Seo-yun into his arms, his voice calm despite the urgency. It's okay, princess. Just a precaution. But Seo-yun knew her father too well. She looked at him with frightened eyes. Is it the bad man? Is he coming? We're going to keep you safe, Miho signed back. I promise. The safe room was hidden behind a false wall in Miho's bedroom. A reinforced space with its own air supply, communication systems, and enough supplies to last for days if necessary. Miho had built it when Seo-yun was born, insurance against the day when his world might come for his family. That day had arrived. Inside, he ordered, ushering them both into the safe room. Dong-hyun and 4 guards will be stationed outside. You'll be. Where are you going? Kiera demanded, reading his intention. To end this. Park is coming here, which means he's desperate and cornered. Dangerous. I need to meet him before he gets anywhere near this room. No. You can't go out there alone. I won't be alone. I have 12 armed guards in this building and 20 more on the way. But I need you here with Seo-yun where you're safe. Kiera grabbed his arm. Miho, what if it's a trap? What if he wants you to leave them unprotected? Then he'll find this room guarded by some of the most dangerous men in San Francisco, with you and my daughter locked behind 6 inches of reinforced steel. He cupped her face. I will come back to you. Both of you. I promise. He kissed her fiercely, then knelt beside Seo-yun. Be brave for me, princess. Like the warriors in your stories. Come back, Appa. Please come back. Always. I'll always come back to you. He sealed the safe room door, heard the magnetic locks engage with a heavy thunk, and turned to find Dong-hyun waiting. Building perimeter is secure. All entry points monitored. If Park tries to breach, we'll know immediately. He won't breach the front. He'll try something unexpected. Miho's mind was racing through scenarios. The parking garage. The service entrance. Maybe even. The lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in immediately, bathing the penthouse in red. But Miho knew this wasn't a standard power outage. He cut the main power, Dong-hyun said, already speaking into his radio in rapid Korean. Backup generators should. An explosion rocked the building. Not close, several floors down, maybe the parking garage. But loud enough to shake the windows and send a clear message. Park Jin-suk had come with resources and a plan. South stairwell team isn't responding, Dong-hyun reported, his face tight. Neither is the garage team. How many men does he have with him? Unknown. But enough to take out our teams. Miho's tactical mind ran through options. Park was creating chaos, dividing his forces. Which meant the real attack would come from an unexpected direction. The roof, Miho said suddenly. He's going to come from the roof. Rappel down to my floor, breach through the windows. As if on cue, the windows exploded inward. 3 figures swung through on ropes, weapons drawn. Miho and Dong-hyun dove for cover as gunfire erupted. The next 5 minutes were chaos. Miho returned fire, taking down 1 attacker. Dong-hyun got another. But more were coming, through the windows, through the compromised stairwell, a coordinated assault designed to overwhelm. Fall back to the safe room corridor. Miho ordered. We hold that position. They retreated step by step, Miho's guards forming a defensive line. Bodies fell on both sides. Blood stained the expensive marble floors. The penthouse, his home, the place where his daughter played and laughed, became a war zone. Park Jin-suk appeared through the smoke and chaos, flanked by 6 men. He looked terrible, bruised, bloodied from his escape, but his eyes burned with fanatical determination. Kang Miho, he shouted in Korean. You took everything from me. My dignity, my reputation, my future. Now I take everything from you. You'll die before you touch my daughter, Miho replied, his voice deadly calm despite the adrenaline screaming through his veins. Then I'll die. But you'll watch her die first. Park's men opened fire, forcing Miho's team back. They were being pushed toward the safe room corridor, exactly where Miho needed to be, but also exactly where Park wanted to go. Sir, we're outnumbered, one of the guards shouted. Hold the line. But Park had more men than Miho had anticipated. Wave after wave pushed forward, overwhelming the defensive position. Miho fought with the precision of someone who'd trained for this scenario 1,000 times. Every shot counted. Every movement calculated. But he was bleeding from a graze wound on his side and his guards were falling. Then he heard it, the sound that stopped his heart. The safe room door opening. No, he breathed. No, no, no. Kiera appeared in the corridor, Seo-yun behind her, both of them wide-eyed with fear. Miho. Kiera shouted. There's another team. They're cutting through the wall of the safe room. We had to. Park saw them. His face split into a triumphant smile. There she is. The precious daughter. Everything slowed down. Park raising his weapon toward Seo-yun. Miho too far away, his own weapon not angled for the shot. Kiera stepping in front of the little girl, shielding her with her own body. Dong-hyun shouting something in Korean. And Miho making a choice that would define the rest of his life. He threw himself forward, abandoning cover, firing as he moved. His bullet caught Park in the shoulder, spinning him around. Park's shot went wide, slamming into the wall beside Kiera's head. But Park's men were still advancing, still firing, and Miho was completely exposed. He felt the impact. A bullet catching him in the chest, the force of it driving him backward. His vest caught most of it, but the pain was enormous, stealing his breath. He went down hard, his weapon skittering across the floor. Park, clutching his wounded shoulder, laughed through the pain. Not so untouchable now, are you? He raised his weapon toward Miho, execution style. That's when Kiera did something extraordinary. She grabbed the fallen guard's weapon from the floor. A man Miho didn't even remember seeing fall, and fired. The shot went wide. She'd probably never held a gun before, certainly never fired one. But the bullet came close enough to make Park flinch, to make him turn toward this new threat. Get away from him. Kiera shouted, her hands shaking but her stance determined. Get away from both of them. Park laughed. You think you can stop me? You don't even know how to hold that properly. Maybe not. But I know where to point it. She fired again. This time the bullet found its mark, catching Park in the leg. He went down with a scream of pain and rage. The distraction was enough. Dong-hyun and the remaining guards surged forward. Reinforcements finally arrived from the lower floors, the teams that had been fighting their way up through Park's ambush. Within seconds, Park's remaining men were subdued or dead. Park himself was on the ground, bleeding from multiple wounds, surrounded by weapons. It was over. Miho struggled to his feet, his chest aching but his vest having saved his life. He looked at Kiera, still holding the weapon, still standing protectively in front of Seo-yun, still shaking with adrenaline and fear. You shot him, he said, something like awe in his voice. You've never fired a gun before and you shot him. He was going to kill you. Kiera's voice was shaking. I couldn't let him kill you. Seo-yun ran to her father and Miho caught her, holding her tight while keeping his eyes on Kiera. You saved my life. You've saved mine multiple times. I figured I owed you one. Despite the chaos, despite the blood and the bodies and the destroyed penthouse, Miho found himself smiling. This woman, this gentle teacher who signed with children and believed in second chances, had picked up a weapon and defended his family without hesitation. He was extraordinary. Park groaned from the floor, trying to reach for a weapon. Dong-hyun kicked it away, pressing his foot on Park's wounded shoulder until he screamed. Sir, Dong-hyun said. What do you want done with him? Miho looked at Park, the man who'd tried to kill his daughter, who'd destroyed his home, who'd forced him into violence he'd been trying to move away from. The old Miho would have killed him without hesitation. Would have made it brutal, made an example, sent a message to anyone else who might challenge him. But the new Miho, the one who'd been learning sign language and reading bedtime stories and falling in love with a woman who saw the best in him, made a different choice. Call the FBI, he said. Everyone stared at him in shock. Sir. Dong-hyun's expression was confused. The federal agents? Park has been running human trafficking operations. I have evidence. Documents, recordings, locations. The FBI has been trying to build a case against him for months. Miho's voice was cold, calculated. Let them have him. Let him rot in a federal prison where my enemies can't make him a martyr. It was a strategic decision. But it was also a moral one. He was choosing the law over the code of his world. Choosing to let justice, imperfect as it was, take its course rather than simply eliminating a problem. It was the kind of choice Jiwoo would have approved of. The kind of choice Kiera had been hoping he'd make. You're sure? Dong-hyun asked quietly. I'm sure. Make the call. As Dong-hyun moved away to contact the authorities, Miho turned to Kiera and Seo-yun. Let's get you out of here. This place isn't safe anymore. Where will we go? Kiera asked. I have another property. Smaller but secure. We'll go there until this place can be repaired. Appa. Seo-yun said in a small voice. I was so scared. I know, princess. I was scared too. But the nice lady protected me. She was so brave. Miho's eyes met Kiera's over his daughter's head. She's the bravest person I know. Aftermath and resolution. The FBI took Park Jin-suk into custody 3 hours later. By that time Miho had moved his family, because that's what they were now, he realized, a family, to a secure property in Sausalito. It was smaller than the penthouse, more intimate, with a view of the bay and gardens where Seo-yun could play. The next week was a blur of FBI interviews, organization restructuring and damage control. Park's arrest had sent shockwaves through San Francisco's underworld. Some families saw it as weakness, Miho turning to the law instead of handling things himself. But others saw it differently. Saw it as evolution. As a sign that the old ways were dying and something new was being born. The Vietnamese families want to meet, Dong-hyun reported during one of their daily briefings. They're proposing a formal alliance. Legitimate businesses only, a shared commitment to moving away from the more violent operations. And the Russians? Watching carefully. But I think they're interested. Everyone's tired of the violence. We've all lost too much. Miho nodded. Set up the meeting. But make it clear, any alliance has to respect the boundaries I've set. No human trafficking, no drugs near schools, no violence against civilians. Those are non-negotiable. Some will resist. Then they're not the future. We move forward without them. It was a gamble. But Miho had spent enough time with Kiera to understand that some gambles were worth taking. Speaking of whom, he found her in the garden with Seo-yun, both of them planting flowers in the raised beds. Kiera's hands were dirty, her hair pulled back in a messy bun, and she was laughing at something Seo-yun had signed. She'd never looked more beautiful. "How are my girls?" he asked, settling on the bench beside them. "We're planting roses," Seo-yun announced proudly. "Kiera same says roses mean love and new beginnings." "Smart woman." Miho's eyes found Kiera's. "Can I steal you for a moment?" "Of course." "Seo-yun, can you keep planting while I talk to your appa?" Seo-yun nodded, already absorbed in her task. Miho led Kiera to a quiet corner of the garden, away from little ears. "I have something to ask you," he said. "And I want you to think carefully before you answer." "That sounds ominous." "Not ominous. Just important." He took her hands. "The FBI is offering me a deal. Full cooperation on dismantling the remaining illegal operations in exchange for immunity. They want me to help them clean up San Francisco's organized crime, from the inside." Kiera's eyes widened. "Miho, that's incredible. That's exactly what you wanted. It means a lot of changes. I'll have to testify against people I've known my whole life. I'll make enemies. And there's no guarantee it will work. The legal route is slower, messier, more complicated than just handling things my way. But it's the right thing to do." "Is it? I don't know anymore. The moral certainty I used to have, that the ends justified the means, has been shaken. By you. By Seo-yun. By the realization that the empire I'm building for her might destroy the very things that make her happy." He pulled Kiera closer. "I'm choosing the FBI's deal. I'm choosing to go legitimate, even though it's risky and difficult and will take years to complete. I'm choosing the kind of life where Seo-yun can be proud of her father, where she doesn't have to lie about what I do, where she can invite friends to her home without security screening them first." "I'm so proud of you," Kiera whispered. "Don't be proud yet. I'm only making this choice because of you. Because I want to be worthy of you. And because I need to ask you something." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Kiera's breath caught. "I know it's fast," Miho said, opening the box to reveal a simple but elegant diamond ring. "I know we've only known each other for 2 weeks. I know everything about this is unconventional and crazy and probably inadvisable. Miho. But I also know that I love you. I know that Seo-yun loves you. I know that you've made us both better, happier, more whole than we've been in years. And I know that I want to spend the rest of my life trying to deserve you." He dropped to one knee in the garden and Kiera heard Seo-yun gasp from across the yard. The little girl had apparently been watching. "Kiera Thompson, will you marry me? Will you be Seo-yun's mother and my partner and the person who keeps me honest when I'm tempted to fall back into old patterns? Will you take a chance on this broken man who's trying to build something better?" Kiera was crying, happy tears that blurred her vision and made her voice shake. "You're not broken," she said. "You're healing. And yes, I'll marry you. Miho stood, slipping the ring onto her finger with hands that shook slightly. Then he kissed her, deep and thorough and full of promise. Seo-yun's delighted squeal broke them apart. The little girl came running, launching herself at them both. You're going to be my real Iyama. My real family. I already was, Kiera said, signing along with her words. This just makes it official. They stood there in the garden. Miho, Kiera, and Seo-yun, holding each other and crying happy tears and making plans for a future that seemed impossible just 2 weeks ago. Mrs. Han appeared on the terrace, took one look at the scene and started crying herself. Dong-hyun, standing beside her, allowed himself a rare smile. Should we tell them about the celebration I've been planning? Mrs. Han asked in Korean. Let them have this moment, Dong-hyun replied. They've earned it. 6 months later. The wedding was small, just immediate family and the close associates who'd become family over the years. It took place in the same garden where Miho had proposed, now transformed with white roses and twinkling lights. Seo-yun served as flower girl and ring bearer, taking her duties with utmost seriousness. Janet was there, having been brought into the circle of trust after extensive background checks and a very long conversation about what exactly Kiera had gotten herself into. She served as Kiera's maid of honor and only occasionally looked like she was questioning her friend's sanity. You're sure about this? Janet whispered as they prepared for the ceremony. Like really sure? Because I love you and I'll support you no matter what, but this is a lot. I've never been more sure of anything, Kiera replied, adjusting her simple white dress, elegant but not ostentatious, perfect for a garden wedding. He really is going legitimate? This isn't just something he's saying. He's been working with the FBI for 6 months. He's testified in 3 trials. He's restructured the entire organization. Is it perfect? No. But he's trying. Really trying. Janet studied her friend's face. The happiness there, the certainty, the peace that had been missing for 3 years. Okay then. Let's get you married. The ceremony was bilingual. Parts in English, parts in Korean, and parts in sign language for Seo-yun's benefit. When Miho and Kiera exchanged vows, they signed along with speaking, creating a visual representation of their promises. I promise to see you, Kiera vowed. Not just the leader, not just the father, but the man underneath. To challenge you when you need challenging and support you when you need support. To love you in all your complexity. I promise to be worthy of you, Miho replied. To keep choosing the harder right over the easier wrong. To build a life where our daughter can be proud and our love can flourish. To never stop trying to be better. When they kissed, Seo-yun cheered loudly, making the small crowd laugh. The reception was held in the house. Catered Korean food alongside Southern comfort food that honored Kiera's heritage. It was a fusion like their family, like their life. Dong-hyun gave a toast in Korean that made several of the older associates cry. Mrs. Han declared that she'd always known this would happen. Janet made a speech about trusting your heart even when your head says you're crazy. And Seo-yun, given special permission to stay up late, signed her own toast. Thank you for making my appa smile again. Thank you for teaching me that family is the people who choose to stay, not just the people who have to. I love you, Kiera Iyama. There wasn't a dry eye in the house. Later, after the guests had left and Seo-yun was finally asleep, Miho and Kiera stood in the garden under the stars. Happy? Miho asked, his arms around his wife. His wife, a word that still filled him with wonder. Deliriously, Kiera replied. You. More than I thought possible. He turned her to face him. Thank you. For what? For stepping into that parking garage. For being brave when you should have run. For seeing past the monster to the man underneath. For loving my daughter. For loving me. Thank you for letting me, Kiera replied. For trusting me with Seo-yun. For choosing to change. For building something beautiful out of something broken. We're building it together. They swayed gently to music only they could hear. 2 people who'd found each other in the most unlikely circumstances and decided to hold on. I have something to tell you, Kiera said after a while. Oh. I went to the doctor yesterday. Just a routine checkup, but... She paused, a smile playing at her lips. We're going to need to start planning a nursery. Miho went very still. You're pregnant. About 8 weeks. Are you? Is this okay? I know we just got married and everything has been so chaotic. He kissed her, cutting off her worried rambling. When he pulled back, his eyes were bright with unshed tears. It's more than okay. It's perfect. Seo-yeon will be thrilled. She will, won't she? Kiera laughed. She's been asking about siblings since the wedding planning started. Do you know what you want? Boy or girl? Healthy. That's all I want. Miho rested his hand on her still flat stomach. A baby. We're having a baby. We are. Is that scary? Terrifying, he admitted. But the best things usually are. They stood there in the garden, planning their future, talking about nursery colors and names and how to tell Seo-yeon the news. 2 years ago, Miho had been a widower, a single father, a man trapped by his circumstances and his choices. 2 years ago, Kiera had been a grieving daughter hiding from life, using work as a shield against risk. Now they were a family, complicated, unconventional, built on a foundation of shared trauma and genuine love. Was it perfect? No. Miho still had business to handle, enemies to manage, the slow process of going legitimate to navigate. There would be hard days, dangerous moments, times when the weight of his past threatened to overwhelm their future. But they would face it together. With Seo-yeon between them, teaching them both to see with new eyes. With their growing family, creating new traditions and new hope. With love that had been forged in fire and tempered by choice. I love you, Miho said, the words still new enough to feel like a revelation. I love you too, Kiera replied. Both of you. All of us. And in the garden of their home under the San Francisco stars, they held each other and dreamed of the future they were building. One careful choice, one brave moment, one act of love at a time. 2 years later. The San Francisco Chronicle ran a feature article titled From Crime Boss to Community Leader, Kang Miho's Unlikely Redemption. It detailed his cooperation with federal authorities, his testimony that had helped dismantle several trafficking rings, and his work establishing job training programs for at-risk youth in Korean communities throughout the Bay Area. There were photos. Miho at a ribbon-cutting ceremony for a new community center. Miho speaking to high school students about second chances. Miho and his wife, Kiera, who ran a nonprofit providing sign language education to underserved communities. The article was fair. It didn't downplay his past, didn't pretend he was a saint. But it acknowledged his transformation, his commitment to using his resources and influence for good. What do you think? Kiera asked, reading over his shoulder while their 1-year-old son James played on the floor at their feet. I think I'm still surprised anyone wants to write positive things about me, Miho replied. You've earned it. 2 years of legitimate business, 0 new criminal charges, extensive community work. You're basically a model citizen now. Hardly. There are still people in the organization who resist the changes. Still deals that skirt the edge of legal. Still human, Kiera interrupted gently. Still trying. That's all anyone can ask. Seo-yeon burst into the room home from school, her backpack bouncing as she ran. At 8 years old, she was confident, happy, thriving in the private school for gifted children where she was finally able to have friends outside the organization. Appa. Mama. I got chosen for the school play, she signed excitedly. I'm going to be the lead. That's wonderful, sweetheart. Kiera signed back. Which play? The Sound of Music. I'm going to be Liesel. She switched to English, still signing along. Can you both come? It's in 6 weeks. We wouldn't miss it, Miho promised, pulling his daughter into a hug. And can James come too? I want him to see his big sister perform. If he can stay quiet for that long, Kiera laughed. Their son was many things, but quiet wasn't one of them. As if on cue, James pulled himself up on the coffee table and babbled something that might have been Nuna, Korean for older sister, or might have been random baby sounds. Seo-yeon immediately went to help him, signing to her baby brother even though he was too young to understand yet. She'd insisted on teaching him from birth, determined that he'd grow up bilingual in spoken Korean, English and ASL. Miho watched his family, his wife helping their son take his first tentative steps, his daughter patiently signing to a baby who couldn't sign back, and felt overwhelmed by gratitude. This life he'd built with Kiera wasn't perfect. There were still challenges. Former associates who resented his cooperation with the feds, rivals who saw his legitimate business transformation as weakness, the constant balancing act of maintaining enough power to protect his family while moving away from the violence that had defined his past. But it was good. It was real. It was everything he'd wanted without knowing he wanted it. "I got a call today," he said to Kiera as they watched the children play. "From Senator Kim's office." "Oh. About what?" "They want me to consult on a criminal justice reform bill. Specifically on rehabilitation and reintegration for former gang members." He paused. "They want someone who understands that world from the inside. Are you going to do it?" "I don't know. Feels like overreach. I'm barely reformed myself. Who am I to advise on rehabilitation?" "You're someone who's lived it," Kiera said firmly. "Someone who knows how hard it is to leave that life, how few real opportunities exist for people trying to go straight. Your perspective is valuable. You think I should do it? I think you should consider it. You've spent 2 years proving you can change. Maybe it's time to help others do the same." Miho pulled her close, kissing her temple. "How did I get so lucky to find you?" "You didn't find me. I found you. Well, technically Seo-yun found me. And I'm the lucky one." "We're both lucky," he corrected. Improbably lucky." That night, after the children were in bed, Miho sat in his office. No longer the cold, intimidating space it had been, but a warm room filled with family photos and Seo-yun's artwork and the everyday clutter of a life well lived. He opened his laptop and began drafting an email to Senator Kim's office. He would consult on the bill. He would use his experience to help create pathways for others trying to leave gang life. He would keep building something good out of the ashes of his past. Because Kiera was right, they were lucky. And the best way to honor that luck was to use it to create opportunities for others. As he typed, he heard soft footsteps behind him. Kiera, unable to sleep, came to curl up in the chair beside his desk. "Writing your memoir?" she teased. "Hardly. Just an email to the senator's office. Saying yes to the consulting position." "I'm proud of you." "Don't be." "Not yet. I haven't actually done anything." "You've done everything," Kiera corrected. "You've chosen your family over your empire. You've chosen the law over the code. You've chosen to be vulnerable and open and willing to change. That's not nothing, Miho. That's everything." He saved the draft and turned to face his wife fully. "I love you," he said. "For seeing me. For believing in me. For never giving up even when I gave you every reason to. I love you too. And I'll keep believing in you, keep challenging you, keep holding you accountable. That's my job as your wife, to be your partner in building the life we want." "And what life do we want?" Kiera smiled. "This one. Exactly this one. Messy and complicated and hard one and absolutely perfect." They sat together in the quiet of the night, two people who'd found each other in a parking garage standoff and built a love story out of impossible circumstances. Outside, San Francisco glowed with thousands of lights, each one a life, a story, a journey in progress. And in this house, in this family, Miho and Kiera were writing their own story. One choice at a time. One brave moment at a time. One act of love at a time. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.